Hi guys, my name is Nick Broughton and I'm a Randomfish. Hit the subscribe button and let's all be Randomfishes together, shall we? I want to go further back into my life than I have done previously. In the past, I've spoken to you guys about my love for TV shows and the old shows I used to watch a lot of when I was growing up, into my teenage years, into my pre-teenage years, all these things. But there's something else I've neglected to talk to you guys about, and something that I honestly feel I need to talk about in this day and age. Theatre. I am a theatre kid. I was raised on being in the theatre, I was raised on performing in the theatre, I was raised on performing just in general, really, whether it was with my voice, or with an instrument, or standing on a stage with my hand holding out with a skull in one hand. Not that ever happened for me. But, yeah, I'm a theatre kid, and kind of proud of it. Honestly, I haven't really spoken about anything theatre related to you guys because, frankly, I've always focused on doing film because film was something that I honestly felt connected to. But theatre is something that I'm connected even more to. And especially during this time of quarantine where all the theatres have been closed, and the wonderful things on YouTube with the theatre at home stuff that we get sometimes with these lovely performances. And it warms my heart to see this sort of thing happen so much. And honestly, I feel the need to discuss the beauty of theatre with you guys. And I want to talk about it on this camera to YouTube right now. So, what are the kind of things that I used to perform in? Well, a lot of what I used to perform in was all a part of a small drama group that I was a part of for over 10 years. Heck, over 15 years, I think. But in complete and utter honesty, these things are there. And it's a lot of fun. It really is. But something that I always thought about very openly with myself was, what is it that I actually enjoy watching? Because I've performed many times, but what is it I actually enjoy watching? Honestly, that's where film came back into it, because watching the film versions of these things, it's a lot more accessible, and frankly speaking, with the expensiveness of theatre tickets, it's cheaper. But honestly, nothing really beats seeing something in a theatre, or seeing something done on stage at all. I have two real things to talk about with these things. The first one is to talk about, I'm going to say amateur performance, because it was not done by a registered theatre company. And that one was a version of Sister Act that I watched where my parents now currently reside. A place called Devizes. If you're in the UK, you might know where Devizes is. If not, fair enough. But Devizes has a large theatre, and it honestly was kind of entertaining. I watched it not in the theatre, but I watched it at I think it was a local church, I believe it was. I can't remember the exact specifics of where it was. But it was an entertaining thing to watch, because Sister Act, in complete honesty, was a unique and interesting film. When it was made into a theatre musical, honestly, I didn't know how I felt about it, because, I'll be honest, Whoopi Goldberg made that, and made that performance her own. So how exactly were you going to be able to bring that across? Honestly, the musical did a really good job of it. It's got some good songs, it's got nice energy, the characters are all very believable to watch and observe, and honestly, it follows the plot insanely closely. Now, the only thing that really changes is Dolores Van Cartier, the main character in Sister Act, has a love interest in the musical, instead of in the film, where she does not have that at all. And yeah, there's a part of me that kind of wishes they'd stuck to the film a bit closer with that kind of premise, because honestly, I do kind of prefer films where you don't have the romantic subplot as much, unless you find it vital to the character's transformation. And honestly, I don't believe that Dolores' character transformation or characterization really needed the add-on of a love interest in the musical. I really didn't. But honestly, apart from that, it's a fun experience to watch. The dramatic bits are very dramatic. You still get the rivalry between the Maggie Smith character and the Whoopi Goldberg character. I am sorry, I am using the actors' names to talk about the characters, because honestly, I don't know if I'll always get the names right, so I'm sort of very focused on that. But we then get all of these things happening. We obviously the gangsters are involved. We have all the various nuns that are involved, and all of that stuff is all is all conflagrated together into this wonderful little mishmash of perfection, if you will. And yes, it's amateur, but honestly, something that people seem to forget is that you need to go to a professional theatre and everything else to see a professional performance. Speaking as someone who was part of an amateur dramatic society for years, I can honestly tell you that is not true. I have seen people who have managed to pull together a Shakespearean play without missing a single one of their lines, completely believable as the characters, creating a decent aura on stage, and legitimately, maybe not frighten the audience, but legitimately connect to the audience in the way that a Shakespeare play can. And honestly, to me anyway, theatre isn't about the expensive theatres. It isn't about the how much you charge for tickets. It's about the emotional connection that you make with that audience, what you make with the actors on that stage. If you feel connected to them, then they feel connected to you. And honestly, that's what drama is. That's what theatre is. There's a quote that I remember seeing from the Victorious series, which is currently available on Netflix. I have been watching Victorious, leave me alone. But there is a quote on the blackboard for their acting teacher that says, "Theatre is life, film is art, TV is furniture." I don't always agree with that statement because honestly, I know that theatre TV has grown a lot given what streaming now has to offer us, really. I mean, let's face it. But at the same time, film can be classified as art. And theatre is just, it's a love affair. It really is. And this is sort of where it comes from and where it's always come from. That's where Sister Act sort of came into it for me. I watched approximately 2 productions while I was there at that particular time when I was up in Devizes. That one was one of those, and the other one was one that, bizarrely enough, my own mother was in. But I honestly do not remember the play enough to be able to talk about it with you guys, because I genuinely do not want to get the plots wrong, because if you guys ever want to go out and check these things out, you need the right information. And if I can't provide it for you, then I'm not really going to bother. So that's sort of where it comes from. Now, moving on to the professional side of things. Again, I know I talk about the professional theatre not really being needed, but honestly, if the emotional connection is there, then that's all I really care about. And honestly, you do not get a better emotional connection than Les Miserables. Les Miserables, if, for those of you who don't know, you've been living under a rock for years in terms of theatre geek anyway, is one of the most famous musicals in the world. Based off of the book from the 1800s, I believe. It was turned into a musical many years later, I should say, and it has become one of the most famous and most recognizable musicals on the planet. So much so that in the late 2000s, early 2010s, it was made into a film. Now, I'm not going to talk about the film because, honestly, I have nothing but negative things to say about it, with the exception of a few, and I'll be honest, my views on Les Mis are slightly more controversial than most other people's views on Les Mis, so I'm just going to leave that alone for a minute in terms of the film. But in terms of the stage production, if you've only ever watched the film, then you've done a disservice to yourself. Let me put it to you this way. The stage of Les Mis, this is where professional theatres have a bit more of an advantage to amateur theatre setups. A professional theatre setup will have things like the way the barricade is designed. It is amazing. It is designed to be this monolith, this gigantic collection of pieces held together to create this thing. And it looks like the gates of the kingdom for the Goblin King in the end of Labyrinth, if you've seen that movie. It looks a little bit like that. It's massive. It's brilliant. It's so well done. And honestly, the size and the scope of the musical is what makes it so epic. I honestly cannot describe it more than chills. At the beginning of the play, you get the opening musical number, which is the prisoners all singing about the fact that they're all stuck in this one place, and they know they've done wrong, but at the same time they'll never see the sun again. You know, nothing of this will ever, you know, our lives will never restart our lives again because we're stuck here in this hellhole. And it's the trudging of all the characters, and they all walk up on the stage, and you see them all there in these chains that link them all together with their feet in cuffs and their hands all tied together, and it's this gigantic salute to the sadness of the play, as well as the book straight off from the get-go. You meet the two main... I will say this, they are the two main characters, the main pro and the main antagonist, if you will. Jean Valjean and Javert. Now, you're probably starting to think of Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe when you think of this. Don't do that. And in complete honesty, this musical is a titan of its power. It made me cry when I was 12, I think maybe 13. I went to watch it in London with a group of friends from a drama school that I was a part of at the time. And we went and saw it in London. It was a matinee performance, and then we all got taken back home again on the bus that night. But watching it, 12, 13 years old, I cried in the audience. And I didn't hide it from people either, because everyone else around me was crying just as much. When that's the kind of reaction you get, that's the kind of power you're dealing with. That's the kind of strength you're dealing with, especially when it comes to something like that. Musicals are, at their very nature and at their core function, they are fun, but they are emotional powerhouses. And nothing beats that. Nothing at all. Now, I realise I've spoken about two musicals here, but I do want to make one final case. I'm adding a third here. Because this is one that I was meant to be a part of, didn't end up being a part of, unfortunately. But it was this story of a character called Peter Grimes. No music, straight out, just a normal play, no musical numbers, nothing like that. Again, done in an amateur sort of style, but done in a local theatre house that we managed to get together at the time. I, like I said, unfortunately could not be a part of that one. I went to see it at the time, and it was absolutely breathtaking. But it was a minimal set and everything else, but again, having a musical helps, because having musical numbers enhances your emotions, and it helps you get things more across to the audience in a much more unique, much more peppy way, if you will. You know, I honestly think that one of my favourite tunes within Les Mis is Javert's theme whenever he comes in and starts like taking control of a situation. The music in that bit is it's not jaunty, but it's very military and jaunty at the same time. It's this lovely little paradox of music. But in complete honesty, a straight play, you don't have that. You have to connect to the audience 100% with your dialogue and 100% with everything else. And that's what I love. That's something that I truly find myself enjoying a lot. There was a beautiful scene where the main character is yelling at his female love interest and whatever it is, and he has to slap her in order to make her go away from her. And it's an intense moment. So intense to the point where, at one point, during rehearsals anyway, I remember, the main female lead, the actress who was rehearsing with us at the time, turned around to the Peter Grimes actor and just said, "Slap me for real." I honestly don't see anything else I can add to it besides that. Slap me for real. And that's what it takes. That's emotional. That is an emotional connection that you not only have to your audience, but to your role as well. That's what happens when you watch something. Especially if you see the rehearsal process and then you watch the performance. Especially if you've seen an early rehearsal, which is what that was. I didn't see the production until weeks later. And honestly, watching it at that point, seeing what it became and seeing its transformation from what I originally saw into what I saw in the theatre was intense. From what you see in a TV trailer or a film trailer to the actual film, there's virtually no change. Except for nowadays where we've had, a trailer's come out and all of a sudden the fan backlash has caused them to change Sonic's face. Or, chose them to turn the cats more disturbingly nightmarish like in that 2019 film. I've forgotten its name. But honestly, you don't see that in film. You don't see a change between an early version to a late version. You don't see that as much. In a theatre production, you really see it. You really feel it. Because honestly, audience members seeing rehearsals is kind of like seeing the making of a film. For some film watchers, they don't always see the difference between the making of the film and what you actually get, because it's the same actors doing the same lines and everything else. You just, and the only thing that's put in there is just more CG. In theatre, you don't have that problem. You don't have that handicap. You don't have that connection to CG. You have to do this whole thing by yourself. So in complete honesty, I want to ask you guys out there, I want to know, have you seen anything in the theatre? If you have, what was it like? Was it professional? Do you think it was done well? Did you get an emotional connection from the characters? If you didn't, why not? Because I want to know. And honestly, I want to talk more about theatre here. Because honestly, I've thought about doing the film thing. I feel more connected to the theatre thing than I've ever done to the film thing. Don't get me wrong, I'll still try and do the film thing, but at the same time, honestly, I feel more connected to theatre than I've ever felt connected to film. It's just the way that I was raised. Just depends on how you were as well. You know what? Keep on swimming, my little random fishes, because frankly, Randomfish, out.